I guess I'd like to say, like, I guess a congratulations, but also like good job on TTV for managing to get a hold of Christian Faber. I actually thought the interview went pretty well. Really interesting to get his side on how Bionicle first got started, where he hopes it would go, and just kind of his like 2 cents on everything, and kind of like I guess clearing the air on a lot of this confusion he's stirred up on like a potential G3. To give you guys the spark notes before everyone here who, so I know maybe some of you watched it, some of you might not have, but basically he talked a lot about the beginnings of Bionicle, how he started in 1986 and like people were getting laid off in the 90s, and so people kind of turned to all sorts of ideas and Bionicle ended up just working out. And to him it means a lot that it's resulted in people being creative, and that to him Bionicle isn't necessarily about a product being on shelves. It's more the system of building itself and the creativity it sparks. And he says, his whole thing was like, as long as there are Bionicles up in someone's attics or someone's basement or on their shelves, like it's alive and going. So that was his kind of like 2 cents at the end of the day. He has this kind of like VR Rebel Nature is what it's called, VR idea he's doing. He's also like working on a film, actually, from what I've been told now. And just all sorts of things. And he hopes one day that he'll be able to retool or repurpose Bionicle. That's kind of what he was saying. So until then, DXL the poet, right? Bionicle will never die. But to clear the air, I think they did at least a decent job and a respectful job, like talking with him and all that.
I think everyone here has like a special place in their heart for Christian Faber. I think I said on my Instagram before, Bionicle is it like formed part of my worldview at this point. But that's going to be interesting to see like what he's got brewing.
I've always had like a very deep knowledge behind the person when it came to his development of Bionicle. I mean, he is one of my sole reasons of inspiration, I would say, when it comes to many of my creations. So when hearing the podcast, the podcast interview, there was a lot of things that I already knew that he was talking about. So there wasn't too many things that were new. The only thing that I would say were new would most certainly be the discussion about the elusive Bionicle G3 and also the name of Good Guy.
Apparently,
which so happened. Yeah, the Troglomorph.
Troglomorph is the name for Good Guy.
That's his name.
Wow.
Yoshi did. Jaeger, did any of you guys watch the interview?
Sadly, I did not get a chance to. Actually,
Nobody
I
here
need
has
to bring up
watched it
something.
except for you, Zach.
So I got the notification.
It has like 1,700 views. One of my favorite things that like Christian Faber brought up, because he knew that he was getting not a lot of hate, but definitely some annoyed, very like, because Bionicle is personal to a lot of fans and a lot of people hold it to heart and like will take all sorts of news, with the littlest grain of salt instead of like, whereas I look at it as like, he's working on his own things. I doubt he really understands what he's saying is going to have this big of an impact. He basically said, to think of like Bionicle or its future or even yourself and where you're at, to put yourself in the mind of like a Toa canister. Like if you were in a Toa canister, you don't know where you're going. There's no map, no direction. You wash upon shore and you figure it all out for yourself. He kind of like that's like very much not verbatim at all what he said, but it was really interesting kind of what he said. He was like, put yourself in a Toa canister. It was like really cool. He was like bringing up these like life parallels, comparing it to Bionicle. I don't know. It was just it was kind of cool. It was kind of fascinating what he was talking about, and seems just like a really amazing dude, and was definitely trying to clear the air because he understood that he was stirring up some trouble with like posting Biological Chronicle and like posting a big 3, like as if it was like G3 and all that. Really interesting. He was like going on about like NFTs and talking about Bionicle making some NFTs and everything. It was like so strange. It was honestly, yeah, you guys should. He said when they were making Bionicle, I think in Danish like Toa means toilet. So like there was this whole tangent conversation about people saying like
Oh no.
like trial of the toilet, like search for the quest of the toilet. Like he was like
No.
within the Lego group, that was like a big joke in 2001, but obviously it stuck. Like funny things like that. It was a good interview, definitely. I think
No wonder they called the G2 like characters, masters instead of Toa.
yeah, that might be
You don't
part
want
of
to
it,
go
but,
back.
I thought it was just the sets weren't called Toa, but they were technically still called Toa.
So does that mean
Yeah.
that calamari are literally just toilet water?
yeah. Yeah, well, I didn't think about that.
Well, we got a stone and we got an earth guy, so.
What would be
Practically
the
the
worst
same
one?
thing.
The toilet of stone, what would be the worst one? The toilet of fire, toilet of water.
Oh my
Toilet of air.
god.
Toilet of water is just a normal toilet. Toilet of fire sounds terrifying. I don't want to deal with the toilet of fire.
I
So,
thought like
toilet
trial by the
fired-
toe or trial of the toe, trial by toilet was just like, oh my
Ugh.
god.
Here comes the
Toilet of
jalapenos.
fire.
That's what you gotta when you're raising your child. Don't call it potty training. Say this is the trial by toilet. Okay?
That's pretty
You'll
good.
feel more accomplished.
Okay,
Oh my
let
gosh.
me. Sea Drifter says, "Hi Zach, what are your thoughts on Good Guy's name?" Okay, yeah, we brought that up. Troglamorph. It's fine. I feel like it's just they made it up for fun, though. I mean, you can say it's canon if you want, but
By the
My only-
sound of the name, it makes me think like it was more so of like a kind of like a backroom joke kind of thing, that you
Right.
just make up and just some funny stuff, when you're
Definitely.
working with
He
this
was, like,
whole
really
team
funny.
of people.
he was like at the beginning of like within the first like 20 minutes or so, he was talking about his role at Lego. They called him like the draw guy or draw boy because he would like pencil and paper would like put their ideas visually out. Like he would write out, and they would always say, "Get that draw guy, get that draw boy over here, draw boy." Like his name for like when he first started working at Lego was just Draw Boy, which is actually kind of interesting. Paraka Avox says, "I honestly think Faber asked Lego for the rights to Bionicle. They would have been willing to give it to him because from what I see, Lego wants nothing to do with Bionicle. I always thought like maybe he like got the rights or something, but I feel like Lego still wants to hold on to their IP. I just don't think they would do that.
I mean,
Why
they're
would they hold
still
on to
like
it?
a hold of the name Bionicle. Like
Yeah.
they're still like a hold of that, but in terms of like the actual product, such as the figures and stuff like that, they lost that.
Also, Paraka
Even-
Avok, I would say the proof is in the pudding with the fact that, like, they might be releasing, or we don't know, but, like, the fact that they did the 90th anniversary and Bionicle was included means they definitely haven't, like, sold the rights to him yet.
no. They're not
Maybe
gonna-
they're letting him license a part of it, maybe, but I just don't know. Lego's pretty airtight about things like that, and
Image. Lego's all about image. There's no way. Even like take out money from the equation completely, and their primary concern is how they're represented around the world. There's no
Right.
way in hell, even if they could make a buttload of cash, that they're going
Right.
to allow somebody else to take Bionicle and potentially do something
oh yeah,
that could then smear them later on.
and it's
Yeah,
it's interesting, yeah.
I would also like to add, like, especially since like Bionicle had a large impact all the way from 2001 to like 2010. It had a prominent staple on like everyday life. When it comes to like people that are interested in buildable figures and stuff like that, that most didn't even knew. It was a Lego properties. So. I mean, you don't want to lose that.
He had left, I don't know if he was asked to leave, but he had left Lego literally right as they were about to begin working on the Return 2015. A month or two, just found out, and he had no idea that they were like starting it again. And he was like, I know all these things that I can't talk about, because his whole thing is this argument that I was talking about, which is like the one thing G2 was missing, great sets and all, and like people love the pieces. Obviously, like the toys itself weren't totally the problem. He said that it was missing out on a lot of the nuance and mystery. And I kind of like felt bad for him when he was talking about it too. So again, it's worth giving it a listen for sure, guys, if you haven't yet.
It's funny that you should say that, because there was an interview with like Greg Farsty, and he too, wanted to go ahead and write for G2, but they were like, no, well, you've done Bionicle before, let somebody else take the reins on it.
That's crazy because he still was working on like Ninjago.
Yeah, but they didn't let him to write, so.
Oh my god.
I guess like Christian Faber wasn't the only one that kind of.
I mean, it's like getting rid of
hanging.
Like, the two biggest creative forces, and then like questioning why didn't it work.
Let's see where I was reading something that seemed pretty good. Oh yeah, Sea Drifter says it seems like Faber is trying to remarket the term biological chronicle. I agree. From what I gather, Rebel Nature is another Bionicle in his eyes. I think that's exactly what he was trying to say. Because the term biological chronicle could be reused. I don't think Lego owns like that. Right, that
they
title.
own the name Bionicle, but he can still use Biological Chronicle.
Yeah, and he was bringing that up a lot. Like, he almost said Biological Chronicle more often than Bionicle within the interview, and I think that's what he wants to keep saying.
It still is a bit of a mouthful, though.
But I also want to point out, about like the basically the symbolic meaning of like Bionicle basically being like Faber's fight against cancer. So like from that aspect, if you go ahead and look like at Rebel Nature and the stuff he's doing, it's kind of like the next chapter in his life, and like proto aspect, where does he go next? What happens, in this next chapter of his life, in a visual sense, kind of like how Bionicle was a visual sense against a fight against cancer. Toa have to come down, defeat Makuta, which was the disease that was plaguing Matanui.
What's the story of Rebel Nature? I'm sorry, I don't keep up with Faber's.
To go more into detail, it's basically like a story of this girl that was raised by a machine.
Yes.
And her sole purpose, ever since she was being raised by this robot, was to go ahead and shut down this facility, shut down the robot, another robot, And outside of that, when it comes to this world, that this girl lives in, it's basically a world where like technology has basically bled into biology, in the sense where like all the creatures and stuff like that that live in the oceans are becoming more and more mechanical due to all the pollution and the stuff that is like polluting the waters. I'm not so sure how much progress he's done in terms of the film. He's definitely keeping things under wraps, but like he already got an actress for the girl that's going to be played. Also got Cryoshell with him, so
yeah, he talked a while about Cryoshell. He was saying he's very close friends with them and had a part in their getting hired by Lego apparently, and also says they're all at a stage of life now where like they're starting to have kids and a family, and so they're really pushing to like get their music out there in other ways. And he's looking at this project he's been doing and this film that he's trying to get off the ground as ways to kind of push forward their music as well.
My big question when it comes to like Rebel Nature is the themes, and how will it like, because he wants this to be kind of like his second Bionicle, but like as a fan of it, like I'm still like not really sure how it will be that, like, let's say going from like Xenogears to Xenoblade, I can still see the themes from like of gods and this and that. I still don't know if I see it in Rebel Nature yet.
Right. Well, I mean, it is. I will say it's like sounds like the project's still very much in the works. He said something about a summer release of like a first little episode or something, because I mean they have been working on it for like 2 years, so you would think they have some sort of work done. I've seen like BTS photos of him on like blue screen stages and people doing mocap.
I mean, like, I think if Faber wants to do this new thing, I can totally understand as somebody who goes through a multitude of projects. Like sometimes you got to finish one thing and start something else. And it's clear that the concept of the biological chronicle was important enough to Faber to have it be a red thread into his next project. But if it's sufficiently different, I think, go for it. It's good. It's good.
It's just more of the one thing with me is I just have not been sold on the just not been sold on it yet.
No,
Which
yeah.
I mean, I'm going to check it out no matter what. It's just more of that's just my problem.
It seems though that it's a philanthropic, entrepreneurial. This is his thing. Whether or not people are going to pay for it and buy it, I don't think is his primary thing. I think his primary thing is getting it out there. He wants.
Yeah.
To
That's what he was talking about.
It's also going to be a multimedia platform because he's also working on a mobile game as well, from what I recall. But it's the mobile game is basically Maze Runner.
Mobile games, never a good idea.
No, it's not.
Mobile games are just kind of bad anyway.
But he's trying. He's trying to do through multiple media, similar to how Bionicle was. So I mean, he's trying. Not so sure if mobile is a good idea, but at least he has a VR game, so that is going to be something that would probably hold him much more effectively.
Yeah.
It would give a lot of us a reason to actually buy an Oculus Rift or an HTC Vive or something like that.
Along that lines, I think, combined with just a personal... Bionicle was him telling a story that was very personal to him, but through a corporate lens. And now this is him trying to do that without the lens of necessarily, or at least through his own corporate lens, it seems like.
This would definitely give him more creative freedom, though, now, than he had when working with Lego. So, if anything, I'm kind of anticipating what will come out from it. Because I always liked his artwork, they've always have been inspiring. So to see more work coming from him, it's something to look forward to.
He's definitely good at a lot of complex, with his drawings and stuff.
I think
complex machinery.
I think Bionicle fans shouldn't get too hung up on whatever Faber's doing as being the next Bionicle.
Exactly, because that was the issue that TTV was having, is they were noticing a lot of fans getting hung up on it, so they wanted to
as I said,
and clear the air. I've always known from the beginning this isn't like Bionicle.
I don't know how many other people here make their own art. What Zach, even video making. Anybody who makes art, you'll know that. When you make something that defines you or that gets really successful, you do not want to be stuck to that. I'm sure you've heard of this with lots of other, you don't want to be cast type as an actor. You don't want to always be the same role as a musician.
Yeah,
it's basically
they call it getting pigeonholed into one thing.
Yeah.
My problem with TTV is how they present it,
Well, because that's their bread and butter. All their bread and butter is Bionicle, so they have to spin it Bionicle. They have no other option.
No, yeah, that's fine. You gotta. That's also like YouTube. Well, he was saying that he very much relies on us for being a majority of his following in the first place. So he wants to market this to at least, a couple thousand people that he knows are going to at least show up for any other sort of project he has in the future, I think. And if you want to look at that as kind of manipulative, I guess, but at the same time I think he's was expressing how grateful he was. At one point he was saying I'm almost close to tears seeing how many people were viewing. I think at one point 300 people were viewing at one time, and he was this is crazy, I've never been in front of an audience of this magnitude even, so
I think people lose sight. I'm going to actually log off in a sec. So last thought before I log off here. People often lose sight of just how many people, 300 people, you see some Twitch streamers got 50,000 viewers and it's 300, that's nothing. But I want you to picture an auditorium of 300 people.
Right.
And for somebody who hasn't done that before or doesn't do that regularly, it can mean a lot. Anyway,
yeah, it's pretty wild.
300 is a lot of people.
Guinness, of course, anytime. Peace out. Thrawn, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. What's up?
Oh, here, Gio, you can finish. Were you at a point?
Just to tail on what Guinness said before he left. Like, yeah, 300 people when you're streaming, that's nothing. But if 300 people in a room, that's a lot of people.
Yeah.
You know,